we think we have a quorum, so we will proceed. We have roll call, please.
Sharon Brock,
Here.
Paul Rowan, Jeff Engel,
Here.
Russell Lee,
Here.
Rick Roberti, Jim Roberti, Roger Gryffindor,
Here.
Trina Cunningham,
Here.
Jeffrey Greening, Joe Hoffman,
Nancy Francine for Joe Hoffman.
thank you, Carol Thornton, and Quentin Youngblood.
Okay, and any additions or deletions to the agenda? Hearing none. Public comment opportunity. This is an opportunity for members of the public to comment on anything under the jurisdiction of this group. If it's on the agenda, if you'll hold your comment till the agenda item's called and jump up and down and signal some way that you have comment, we'll call on you then. But if you have comment on something not on the agenda, now's the time. So is there anyone with comment?
Sharon?
Yes.
I just want to mention Daniel Lovato is here. He's our Plymouth Forest Supervisor. I don't know if he's been able to make one of these meetings yet, and I don't know, a lot of you already know Daniel, but maybe a few of you don't. So
Daniel,
Daniel can only can't stay for the whole meeting, so I wanted to make sure that he had a chance to.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for sending the opportunity. Yeah, no, I had not been here before, and as we were talking, we feel it's important that either Barbara and I start being more active here as part of this, not just having, Joe Hoffman and or Nancy show up. So we want to provide the support to them and also to this group. So that's why I'm here. I would like to stay for the whole meeting, but I have to take my wife to a doctor's appointment this afternoon. So,
well, welcome, and we're really pleased to have you.
well, thank you.
Okay, announcements and reports. Any brief announcements or reports?
I have one announcement. I've been working to put together a TEK symposium. We held one 4 years ago in Genesee Valley. And so I'm working in conjunction with the Governor's Office of Planning and Research. And it's slated for August 2nd, the actual day of the symposium. It's a 2-day event altogether, but we're bringing some of the metropolitan people up to Plymouth County as well. So the second day will be focused on that interface. So I just wanted to read you briefly the little outline in that. And I wanted to extend an invitation to all of the management group to participate. And I'll be sending out more emails. And we just got this agenda put together yesterday, so it's a short turnaround. There's a broad agreement that California's upper watersheds are a priceless natural resource that provides California with a set of advantages that provide benefits to every Californian. There is also broad agreement that California's upper watersheds are in peril. Unfortunately, consensus is less apparent when it comes to how to restore and actively manage these vital areas and who should cover the cost. And then the conveners, which consist so far of OPR, hopefully the U.S. Forest Service, and the MITRE community, and anybody else that wants to participate in that process, invite you to join us for a 2-day workshop designed to cement our broad agreements and grapple with the tough questions around methods and financing. The workshop will be divided into 2 segments. The first day's discussion will be a check-in among collaborators engaged in management of the Hart K Ranch, a Feather River Land Trust property in the Genesee Valley, which may serve as a good example of the benefits of cross-sector collaboration and as a case study to analyze financing opportunities. All participants are urged to be there for the first day, as the second day's discussion will reflect on what was learned from observing the discussion among the Hart K Ranch collaborators. Invitees will include leaders in the upper watersheds around California across sectors including tribal, NGO, local government, private landowners, and industry. The invite list will also include urban representatives who are either engaged or interested in collaborators in the effort to preserve and restore upper watersheds. So at this point, we've got the Governor's Office, OPR, and then Lester Snow and Martha Davis confirmed on the metropolitan arena, and we're still working on those invitation lists. So
Fantastic. Sounds like a wonderful opportunity.
Trina, do you think we'll have something that we can post on the website for that too?
yes, we can post something about that, and then we want to have ongoing, at least weekly planning meetings up until that date to give backstory and to refine our purpose and what we want to talk about on that 2-day sector.
That's wonderful.
I just wanted to add that there's some flyers over here for the Sierra Water Work Group Summit, which is on July 24th and 25th at, I think it's in Kings Beach. So,
That should be a good place to go.
yeah.
At this time of year.
And the focus of it is on DAX. That's the focus of the summit this year. And then the second day is legislative sessions, and the first day is informative.
Super, thank you. Okay, that takes us to the consent agenda. We have one item, and that is to approve our meeting summary for the meeting held April 21st. Anybody have changes or suggestions, or I'll entertain a motion to approve?
Anything motion to approve it?
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Okay, action agenda number 1 is Butte County RWMG representation. Consider Butte County's request for representation on the RWMG. I'm not sure it was purely their request, since I think we kind of requested their participation also. So welcome, Doug. And is there any discussion? I assume that you went back to your board.
Yes, I
And
drew
they-
the short straw.
I was gonna
and
say,
They all
right?
said
And
sure.
they said, oh, you can go. So, yes, Rick.
I believe your board approved the MOU,
Yes.
so they're kind of moving forward to join, so.
Good. Well, we welcome the representation, and I think we all share concerns for our watershed, and certainly we're integrated in what we do here affects what happens in Butte, and what happens in Sierra affects all of us too. So, is there any discussion on seating a member from Butte County? Can I get a motion to approve seating Doug Peter as a representative from Butte County on the management board?
So moved.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Welcome.
Pleasure.
Now you're official.
Now I can vote.
Yeah. And talk a lot.
No.
Item 2 is Prop 1, Disadvantaged Community Involvement Coordination. This is overview and discussion of the Prop 1 draft Disadvantaged Community Involvement, which is DACI. Grant draft application packets are included support for the applicant for information and discussion. Wilma?
Thank you. I'm just going to briefly introduce it, and then Lauren Miller from Sierra Institute is here also. And I have to apologize, I forgot to introduce Melissa Berger. She is working with me now, and she lives in Gray Eagle. She's going to be assisting with work up here, so it's wonderful.
Fantastic. Welcome.
So this is a continuation of the last meeting. This is for the Disadvantaged Community Involvement Grant application that is going to be put forward by the Mountain County Funding Area. This is a funding area-wide application. The coordinating committee, which is representatives of each of the IRWMs within the funding area, threshold of mountain area regions, met on June 7th and provided feedback on the administrative draft application. And then the Sierra Institute team will be the applicant, and they have been working on putting together the final draft, which there is a final draft in your packet, which begins on page 13 of your packet. It has changed a little bit, it's been tweaked a little bit since then, but hopefully Lauren can help us understand those tweaks a little bit better. And she's prepared to do a little presentation on that, or if you guys would like to just jump into some questions.
I think we'd like a little presentation.
Will it be a dog and pony act, or
So people don't think you just came here just to,
or just something to look forward to?
I don't know how many of you have actually looked at it yet. This would be a draft that we've had one round of revisions with the coordinating committee, and then we're accepting comments, so we're gonna do another round. It does say final draft, but we have one more round. And then hopefully if everyone approves of that, we'll be submitting it to DWR as soon as possible to get the process rolling along. And basically, within that proposal, there are 6 components that are required by DWR. And so the first component is the applicant section. So that basically describes the process that Uma described and how we were selected. And that's pretty much it. The second section is a background of Mountain County's funding area, what has occurred so far in terms of DAC identification and needs assessment, but why it is presented on a region-wide basis, even though this is the first time those areas have worked collaboratively, is that DWR wanted us to present a more general funding area background. So it's not specific to each IRWM, but it basically shows the general trends. There is a lot of diversity along the IRWMs, with some having gone through many identification processes and needs assessments, while others are a little behind. So it kind of describes where the whole region is. And then it also discusses some of the shortfalls of the current definition of disadvantaged communities and how the DWR methodology kind of relies on a single indicator. And so it indicates the gaps that we're hoping to fill with a more inclusive methodology and a more inclusive definition as well. The third section is the most robust section. It describes all of the activities that we are proposing throughout the 3 years. And also just to note, within this proposal, there is an annual review for activities, budget, and schedule, and those can be modified. DWR says it's quite flexible. And so following each year, it'll be decided what still needs to be done, or if we're ready to move forward with other activities, or if it needs to be modified, as well as the budget and schedule. So it's pretty flexible, and that's stated in 3.3. And so activities included are identification methodology, outreach and engagement with disadvantaged communities and tribal communities, community capacity and needs assessments throughout the Mountain County funding area, and then capacity building and technical assistance workshops. And so many of those workshops are found under Activity 4. And also included in Activity 4 is another assessment where we'll have lessons learned shared among IRWMs, as well as adjacent regions, upstream and downstream. And then the final tasks shown in the proposal is grant administration and project management. And the fourth section of the proposal is the statement of qualifications. So some of you may have seen that when we submitted the application to be the applicant, or submitted the SOQ to be the applicant. So it's pretty much the same statement of qualifications as was before. And then there is the schedule and the budget. And so in the schedule, one of the modifications is that 3.3 is included in the most recent version of the schedule. You have, I think, one draft behind because this, some modifications were made yesterday. In the budget, there's also a 3.3 included. Also in the schedule, some of the dates that start later, we have them starting earlier just to create that flexibility. So if there are already communities identified and they're ready to go ahead with a needs assessment, or even further ahead onto workshops, we put those dates earlier on so those can be started early prior to what we had there before. And I'm trying to think if there's any other modifications. There was also a budget change where the Sierra Water Work Group really did lay the groundwork to get this process moving and did the request for qualifications and had the group meeting. And so they have an invoice in the budget as well that was added yesterday. So I think that's it with what's been changed since your proposal has been printed. And if there are specific questions, I'm more than willing to answer them. I didn't know how in-depth you wanted on our presentation. So.
Anybody have any questions?
So I just want to, can I say something? This is an effort to identify the disadvantaged communities within this whole region and to help build them capacity to move forward on water issues within this 9 IRWM region. So it seems like a pretty major effort. It's going to take a couple of years to do.
3 years.
So I just want you to be aware that this is the step to try to build some capacity within the region, and of course we feel like we need some capacity. So it's just not an exercise to do a study. It is a really on the ground to build some capacity and identify those needs. Where she's talking about expanding or dealing with the definition of disadvantaged community, I'm not going to use the acronym. Right now, it's 80% of state medium is the standard that the Department of Water Resources is using, but we don't think that captures the true disadvantaged nature of these communities. And so there's some social science going to be applied to further refine what's going on out there, some capacity analysis, and then some tools for building capacity in the future. So we're kind of getting a little bit more detail. Hopefully, it'll lead to, everybody being able to fund projects a little easier. There's a strong tribal engagement factor in all this. So there's going to be a lot of unity, I think, created in this from the mountain counties all the way from us, and it goes all the way down to the southern Sierra. So I just wanted to make sure there was an understanding of what we're doing here with this. And they wanted one proposal, DWR, and they've allocated $1.3 million to do this.
Yeah.
Randy, could you just briefly, just a couple questions to stay informed. Remind me again why Department of Water Resources, if I listen to that term, Department could give a diddly squat about disadvantaged areas.
Well, a lot of this focus is on water and wastewater needs for disadvantaged communities up and down the Sierra. So that's the
So the state has told
The
this
legislature.
particular area of a very specific water resources, you have to identify and make sure that your money goes to these areas. Is that another way of saying it?
I think where it came from was that, they would get these water bonds and they would send out these RFPs for solicitations for grants. And a lot of the big metropolitan areas or large water districts were able to put forward proposals and suck up all that money. Well, the disadvantaged communities who have a lot of need, especially with the economy of scale, don't have the capacity to really participate in those efforts. So this is an effort on UWR's part to bring them up to a place where they can compete with the big guys across the state. So they're the playing field.
Yeah, and that was my understanding, and I think it's important for us to put everything in context. So when we see these proposals coming on, there has to be a bigger context picture, so we all see that this is a piece of a puzzle that is going to hopefully benefit our community, because that's why we're all here. So I get it.
And this is the first step. The first step, this is the involvement piece. So following the involvement, there's implementation funding as well. And I think that's 13 million.
It's 13 million for everything. Of that, 1.3 is for the disadvantaged community involvement, and there's an additional 1.3 set aside for DAC implementation projects. Those are minimum numbers. It doesn't, you're not limited to that, but it will be competitive at that point. This is not a competitive grant. This is a massage the work plan with DWR's help to get it to where they're happy and then move forward with it.
So one of my standard things is we learn more about building our capacity. It opens up the potential, especially if we're identifying DAC more accurately for other funding sources other than the Department of Water Resources. Leah, you want to jump in here?
Well, the water board, the legislature took a two-part shot at this, and they were kind of driven by all the nitrate problems in the San Joaquin, and the fact that some of those communities still after 5 years of drought don't have any drinking water. So that created a big storm down there, got the legislature all excited. And that's how the legislature got involved in directing these agencies to get serious about serving these communities. So it was really two agencies. It was the Department of Water Resources who's taking this planning part, and the water board, who used to be what was public health or safe drinking, that got taken away from because they weren't spending the money in the poor communities. And it was handed to the water board, and the water board has $500 million available for drinking water and wastewater projects in poorer areas. So the reason they pushed us all to work together
is if we can bundle our needs across this really dispersed Sierra Nevada region, then we have a package that's really competitive with other areas. It's almost like the old block grant program with all its nightmares. We can learn from that, but
That's a
but
dirty word.
I know, but it's the idea that if you bundle things in a smart way and you go in with a proposal that, you know, isn't community by community whenever they can get around to it, and can they manage the grant, and on and on and on it goes. We know how that all is. So that's an opportunity. And the other thing that we hope we can do with this disadvantaged coordinating committee that Randy and I've been sitting on, directed by you guys, is that together maybe we can influence the rest of that 13 million. If we can come forward with a really compelling package of needs to the rest of the IRWMs in the region, maybe even the big districts in that region will kind of go, well, you know, we'll let these poor communities have some of the money this time instead of out-competing us like they always do. So we have high hopes that if we do this assessment right and we're organized under this process, that we could actually do take a chunk out of that 13 million that Department of Water Resources will have available and get some of that 500 million that's available right now for real projects on the ground, things that actually make people's lives better. So that's our hope.
Well, and this gives me an opportunity to bring up something that is of concern to me, in that when we started this IRWM process, of course, we had Prop 84 funding, and it was paying for, in large part, our consultants and some of Leah's time and Randy's time. And now we've completed our portion of Prop 84 and it's closed out and there's no funding stream. So while we're all sitting here knowing how valuable the IRWM process is and the potential for all this money that you've been talking about, and yet over the 11 years I've been supervisor, one of the major things I see is that the very people who need the money, whether it be a municipal utility district that needs to replace sewer or upgrade water treatment or whatever, they do not have the capacity to figure out how to write for a grant, even to know that the grant's available in most cases. But I think our biggest problem in this region is the lack of capacity at the boots on the ground level to figure out a grant's available, write the grant proposal, follow through the process, and then, heaven forbid, if they get the grant, they don't have the capacity for grant management, for tracking the funding, for accounting for it, and, you know, going back to the grantor, being able to show they actually use the funds for what they said they would, and so on and so forth. So part of what I'm concerned about is we've all agreed in a previous meeting that this process should go forward, but what we haven't ever done is identify who's going to pay for it. Who's going to pay for the staff time, Randy's time, Uma's time, Leah's time, that's devoted to this process to get it all together so that when we come sit here, we're presented with a package of stuff that people have been working their rear ends off getting together for us. So one of the things I brought up with Randy recently is I think we have 3 counties who benefit from this. And so my proposal to consider with our counties, and I'm sorry the Sierra County representatives aren't here because they're not going to get a